Okay, Brian, you can go ahead.
Okay, thanks, James. I want to welcome everybody to the August 31st meeting of the St. Catharines Heritage Advisory Committee. The time that I have is 2:32. We begin this gathering by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Acknowledging this reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of the Indigenous peoples. Do we have any additions to be made to the agenda?
So I think the only one that I'm aware of is the item you wanted to add about the synagogue.
The synagogue, you're right. Yeah, because Henrietta Street's going to be under the subcommittee update, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Sure,
I think I saw Maria's hand shoot up first. So all in favor?
Yep.
Okay. We'll get you next time, John.
Okay.
The minutes of the previous meeting from July 27th. Do we have any questions, comments, changes? Gail?
Oh,
You're on mute.
Sorry, I was trying to be quiet. Yeah, there's just a couple of typos, very small ones. Page 2, when Lorraine is going to be made the vice chair, the last sentence says, unless there is something from the S of,
Right.
and I don't know whether it's others or committee members or what, but it's just the letter S.
I think that's supposed to be members. I did a control, a replace all with something. So I think that's what happened. So I'll make sure that's fixed. Thanks.
Okay, and there's one other typo, and that's in under number 9 when we're discussing at the very end. We're discussing the oil fountain. It's not the Ollie fountain, it's oil, O-I-L-L-E.
Okay, thank you. I'll make sure those are changed.
Just typos, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else have questions, comments, concerns? Rachel?
Internet, so I'll refrain from talking. Maybe I don't know what I'll do. Try to change computers. But anyway, I note a couple of other typos as well. I think at one point, the word story, it's like a 2-story building, and there's a transposition. I think it reads like strory or something like that. I think also Councillor Garcia's first name is Carlo at one point, like the S is missing. So I'm sorry I can't pinpoint exactly where those are because I shut down everything to hopefully make this meeting go smoother on my computer, but just those 2 very minor things.
No problem. I can track those down. Thanks.
Thanks. Anybody else? If not, then I guess we should have a motion to approve the amended minutes of July 27th.
I'll make it.
Gail, thank you. And all in favor? None. Conflict declarations of interest. I feel that I should make a declaration for item 7.4 on the John Page Park because of course I work for ASI and I did the historical research report on the park, so I should recuse myself from the discussion at that point. So our illustrious co-chair or vice chair will have to take over for that part. Any other declarations? Okay. So moving on to item 7.1, 21 Pine Street. This is a porch renovation in Port Dalhousie, and I guess Lou Marcantonio is here with us.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon.
So the floor is yours, razzle dazzle us.
Oh, okay. So as you know, we came came to see you a while ago about this work here, and it's underway. As you can see, that's a recent photo, maybe last week. So everything is staying as we had proposed. It's going well. The owners have now asked, could we make the porch a 3-season by filling the openings with glass? So that's why we're here. So the original plan was to leave the porch as it is, put a new roof on it, change the little spindly posts, which are still there at this moment, to something a little more appropriate, like those square, larger ones. We're going to replace the guardrail that was there with something more appropriate, painted wood. So those are, nothing was changing. What's happening is now they want us to, instead of having the guardrail at the bottom, have a painted wood panel, approximately 20 inches high, something like that. And then infill between those new posts with windows and one, I guess I would call it a French style door, so that they could use that porch, say 3 seasons of the year. That's it. That's what we're doing. So it'd be 3 sides. They'd be custom size glass windows because they need to fit between the existing porches posts. That's it. Theoretically, you could remove those windows and the French door someday, and the porch would be intact. That's why we're here, hoping this is okay. I don't believe the owner's here or Sheldon, the builder. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Lou. Yeah, do we have any questions about the presentation? Maria, your hand was up.
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, maybe I missed it. In the glass windows that the owner is suggesting go on the porch, would there be a corresponding door to enclose the porch?
Yeah, where the original, see where the steps are? Like the steps stay where they were. And there was 2 posts there which are closer together. So yeah, right there. So what we'll do is put a French door there.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those posts are, I think last time we were here, we determined those porches weren't appropriate. They're more Victorian and they were kind of spindly. So we're replacing those anyway as part of the original permit.
Mm-hmm.
And just to add through the chair, so they're a Victorian kind of style, but they are not original to the house. So it was a recreation that was done maybe in the 80s or 90s, maybe even a little later than that. But yeah, just wanted to clear that up just in case anybody was confused.
Yeah. Councillor Garcia? You're on mute.
Yes, I was trying to unmute and it wasn't letting me. Is that better?
Yep.
Yeah, so just curious, Lou, why do you say 3 season? Would that glass not be double pane and would they not be able to heat that space?
I guess we call it 3 season because the heating system in the house is not extended into this little space. You're right, they could put in a little electric heat or something like that. It's not a heated, like the ceiling is the original roof. It's just wood decking up there. It's not insulated. There's no insulation below. It's just like an unexcavated space under there. So yes, theoretically you could do that, but you would be in the middle of cold winter, you would basically be heating Port Dalhousie, I think. So so we usually call those, like, it's like a sunroom. It's a 3 season room. You can certainly get out there and use it in the colder weather if it's not terrible, but it's not really a heated environment.
Okay, thank you.
Are these windows that we see in the shot that's on the screen now?
Yes.
Are they replacements?
They are replacements. Those are the new ones. You can see they went into the original opening.
Okay, are the windows for the porch going to mimic those or be completely different?
No, they're going to be a little different. They're going to be more multi-pane, as you can see
Oh,
there.
okay.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So, and so is
Mark,
the,
your hand is up.
Yeah. How does that fit with the streetscape? How many other houses around there have an enclosed porch like that?
I don't know how many porches are left. I don't know. The streetscape is not exactly uniform. So
Yeah, through the chair, perhaps I can help. Pine Street has kind of seen various little waves of development, especially on the other side of the street. It's a lot of new construction. And so, yeah, I don't think there's a consistent kind of character on that street necessarily.
Okay.
I think it's actually rather a nice looking proposal.
I think I saw Maria with her hand up, and also David. Oh, David, you're mute or on mute.
I just have a quick question, if I may. I like the look of it as well, and I'm afraid I'm not an expert in any way at interpreting drawings and sketches, but because I missed the French door, obviously, with my last question. But I was wondering what you could assure me of with the new glass panels on the porch. Would it be complementary to the heritage style or design of the house?
I think it is. The house isn't a jewel, but it will be a lovely little house. And Sheldon's doing a nice job with the hardy board. He's working on the backside, so pretty soon it'll be on the front. He's making us some nice custom made shutters to fit. The columns are at the porch are being custom made. I think he's doing a very good job of trying to make sure this looks like it's all done by hand, which it is, you know. And as I said, the porch really is the same. It's just we're filling in. Theoretically, these could have been storm windows and they could be taken out for the summer.
Yeah.
Theoretically, I don't think that's actually going to happen. But that's kind of the idea, is that you're kind of giving the family a little bit more space to live in. It is a young family that's coming here, so they need as much space as they can find in here.
Okay,
thank
you.
Yeah.
Dr. Bergen?
I grew up in a house that had a glassed-in porch that was under 3-season and it was terrific. And I also like wandering around both Port Dalhousie, there aren't so many here, but in old St. Catharines, there are a number of glassed-in areas like that, and I always like looking at them. I think they're quite nice. So just that's my feeling. I like it.
There's a few glassed-in porches on, I think, on Main Street, sort of down towards St. John's Church and beyond there. So it's not as if it doesn't have a precedent.
No, it is interesting, and it is relatively transparent. It is sort of like a porch, but yeah, it basically they're getting some more use out of that little space. It's kind of neat to sit there, and maybe they're watching people go by, that kind of stuff. Kind of neat.
And keeps the mosquitoes away too.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I worked in, I don't know if you guys know where Joe Colonna's office used to be on Queen Street. His porch was enclosed. That was our office. That's really 80 Queen Street. It's really neat. Nice space. But anyway, that was a long time ago.
So if we have no further questions or comments, then can I have someone make a motion that we approve the proposed changes to the porch at 21 Pine?
It's just a further question that I have, Brian, if you wouldn't mind.
No, go ahead.
Maybe I could direct this to James or the whole group. if the guidelines for heritage permitting talk about avoiding enclosed porches, are we saying that because this is not a solidly enclosed porch, that the design changes wouldn't be a significant concern? I know if we can make a motion to accept it, that'll answer my question, but James, is that
Yeah,
a manageable interpretation?
So through the chair, my interpretation of so that paragraph refers a lot to maintaining and retaining existing porches. That, in my understanding, or the way that I look at that policy, is original porches. So it's about maintaining and ensuring that original porches are retained and their character is retained. And I think if this was an original porch, we'd probably be, it would be a lot harder to determine whether or not we'd want to see a proposal like this go forward. But because we know that this is not original, none of the materials are original, I think that guideline doesn't necessarily apply in this case.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have someone to make the motion? Dr. Bergen, thank you. And all in favor? Done.
Okay, thanks, Lou. I'll be in touch next week after the long week.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Okay, thanks, Lou.
Too.
Moving on to item 7.2, 51 Dalhousie Avenue. This is for an application for new windows. And the owner, I guess, is here, Diane?
Yes, I am. And my husband, Ed Nouse, is here as well.
Ah, great. So the floor is yours.
Okay, so this is I think, a relatively straightforward project. We need to replace the windows in our house. They're single pane glass and extremely energy inefficient. They have storm windows, which, as we're getting older, climbing ladders onto the second floor to move 4 and 5 foot windows is getting more and more dangerous. There's a lot of damage. We started out, when we bought the house in 2012, looking for a craftsman who could replace or repair the windows, and we're not able to find anyone who could do that to the quality level that we need. As you can see, the damage, we spent a lot of time this year and last looking for windows that would retain all of the heritage features, look and feel of our existing windows. At the same time, we note that this is a house that went through an extensive renovation in the 80s and early 90s, including building out the second story. So we know all of the second story windows were put in the 80s. And looking at our windows from the inside, there are plastic slides on the side panels. So they were at least extensively repaired, if not replaced, at the same time. We can see when they put the siding on that they redid all of the exterior framing. So we're not changing anything. We're proposing to put new windows into the existing window wells without any alteration. We're proposing to rebuild the exterior framing, and we have found someone to do that so that it will exactly match what's there now. The windows that we're putting in are double hung wood windows from Anderson, being put in by Crowland out of Welland, who did the original work on our second story in the 1980s. We've chosen traditional windows that have been used in heritage applications in other jurisdictions and follow exactly, so that from the exterior, from someone looking from the street, they shouldn't be able to see any difference. The difference for us is that they'll be energy efficient. So, especially with climate change and everything that's going on for us, that's extremely important. I think it would be important for everyone. They're safer for us. They open and close properly. The windows that we have now do not. So we're using lots of dowels and other things to be able to close them. We won't have to worry about the rot and damage that the windows have now. And it would, even if we could find a craftsman who could do the work because the caulking on the grills on the outside, we don't know if those are like if they're separate panes or if they're one pane of glass with a grill. But at any rate, replacing that or trying to fix the exterior risks damaging the glass or destroying the glass while they're doing it. So we're hoping that this is a pretty straightforward application. We're very sensitive to the heritage qualities of the home, and the windows also will interior, they'll match exactly the wood that we have currently, which I know you don't care as much about, but we do. And yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, thanks. Do we have questions about the presentation?
No.
Councillor Garcia.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say that I'm familiar with Crowland and Welland, and they are, I believe, the best supplier for wood windows. And I had some of their woodwork done in my house many years ago, and I know they have a great reputation. So,
yeah. And we did extensive research. We went to Toronto, we went to Burlington, we went to Hamilton, and they really did have the best.
Okay. Mark?
Really, I was just going to say what Councillor Garcia said. I'm familiar with those Anderson windows myself and Proland, and you're getting a good quality window that matches the aesthetic of heritage buildings, which I really like it.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? And if not, then I guess we should have a motion to approve the proposed new windows for 51 Dalhousie.
Yeah, I'll make that.
John, thank you. So all in favor? Okay, done.
Okay, great. Thanks, Diane. I'll be in touch next week with your heritage permit.
Great,
okay, thank you. Moving on to item 7.3, a heritage grant for 134 Geneva Street. Is Heather with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Hello, Heather.
Hello,
Long time no see.
Oh.
Hi, Heather.
Hi.
How long ago did we designate your house? Was it about 2010?
I wrote down 2009 question mark. So it may have started in 2009 and finished in 2010. So yes, bought it in 2002. Sorry?
It's been a while.
Yes, yeah, it has. And certainly it's time to do the porch. That's the next thing on the list. So it's interesting to hear the first speaker talking about the porch and second speaker about the windows, because our windows are all Crowland sash, custom made 7-foot arch storms that were put on, but that's not why we're here. Actually, it is relevant because the bay window that has the copper in it that's to be removed and replaced. I did find this picture. Can you see that? From around 2000, around 2002. Oh, where's maybe is that better?
No.
Anyway, it's got the aluminum storms on it, and they're cut off, square windows, and then these horrible square shutters that, of course, don't match the arch. So that was the first thing we did in 2002, was take those off and have Crowland sash do the storms. So anyway, the bay window that is there, we want to restore, or we're going to restore the copper. So that's why I'm here, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. It is tarred on top, which it had been over the years before it was purchased, and there is aluminum outside of that, but the copper is there. which is awesome. And the paint job needs to be done in September on the front. The afternoon sun is not kind.
So the application is just for the copper, or is it for the copper and the paint?
No. The paint, no. It was just for the copper roof. The quote is there. I don't have it in front of me because I'm on my iPad and my laptop's too old. So yes, thank you. I knew you had it.
Yeah, so just to clarify in case you can't read it on the screen, so the quote that they received involves removing the existing roofing material, supplying and installing high temperature peel and stick waterproofing over the bay window, supplying and fabricating and installing copper drip edge, fascia, standing seam panels, wall flashings, which will be ground into the brick, fabricate and install custom-made top nosing and flashing for flat top hook seam panels to be installed and soldered together, grind in flashings under windowsills and install new copper flashings, which will be soldered to copper roof, and supply and install 5-inch K-style copper gutters and 3x3 square copper downpipes. So it's a lot of copper work essentially being done. And the grand total was $9,972, and of course the grant would be for half the time.
We just hope with all that copper that you don't end up having thieves stopping by your place.
Well, the good thing is the windows, or it's 11-foot ceilings inside the, that's why I'm sitting in here, so you can see it from the inside, the background. But yeah. And it's also good that it's on Geneva Street, but that it does go through your mind, unfortunately, in the world today, but that's what was there and that's what should be there. So.
Councillor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank Heather, and for those of you who may not be familiar with Heather, she is a former city councilor and was very supportive of maintaining our heritage around the city. So it's great to see. That's a beautiful house. So they really care about it, and that's great to see.
Thank you, Carlos. Yes, there's a lot of work that has been done over the years, but this is the first time that I've come to the Heritage Committee to ask to share in the cost. But so happy to continue the work that is needed for heritage homes.
And for those of you who don't know, Heather was also a former member of the Heritage Committee.
That's what my hand
many years ago.
That's what my hand is up about for.
Ah.
She was on the first Heritage Committee that I was on, and she, I've been in her home, and it's a very beautiful home.
Mark, you had a comment, question?
Yeah, I think the plan to that is that's going to look really sharp. I was wondering how many quotes were received for this work.
My husband actually did the research, and this, I don't know if he got more than one quote or not, but this gentleman was highly recommended, was what, but that's a fair question, but that's what I submitted, so.
Okay.
So I was just checking the name. It's Architectural Copper and Sheet Metal Limited out of Fenwick.
Yeah, and I know there's a few others that do copper work in the area too. So I thought I'd ask.
I wonder if that on top of that bay window where the copper is going to go in, if this house at one point, because I've never seen a really old picture of it, if it might have had a little bit of wrought iron, like a little bit of a railing going around the top of that roof. Because that was, kind of a common thing that they would have done at that time. If you actually find out if that was the case, it would be neat to kind of have a little bit of wrought iron work up there. But
yeah, there is a picture we have of a sister house that sorry, that's the grandfather clock. Sister house, but I'm not sure if it's on there. I can dig that out because certainly that's a fair point as well. With the reason there's never been a front porch, though, is actually because of that sister house photo. There are so many variations, and my husband always thought it should be brick, like the one on Welland Avenue, the Newman Brothers one. And I've always said there was no brick there. That's why there's no porch. So we finally, after 20 years, decided that we're going with, you know, a wood frame. So I'd be happy to have any input from the Heritage Committee on that as we move forward with that probably in the next year. I don't know if that's a sidebar question to ask now, but just when you're commenting on other suggestions, I would welcome input on the porch. Anyway, back to the bay window roof. That's the priority today.
Yep. Okay, so if there's no other questions or comments from anyone, then
Lorraine actually has a question.
oh, sorry, Lorraine.
Hi, and mine was just a very simple background question. I don't think I heard how old the house is, and if you could just give us a really quick summary of some of the history that you found out about this house. I wasn't on the committee then,
Sure.
but I'm really interested in knowing a little bit more about it.
Sure, it was 1876, 77, and the builder was Sullivan, and the name of the house is to be Sullivan House, and other members on the committee would remember that traditionally it's you go with the first owner and then the current owner who has it designated, but I said I refuse to be the Farmer Foss house. So the first owners were Farmer, the last name was Farmer. And in the 1950s, it was a dental office. And then there was one owner for many years. And then the owner prior to us had done a lot of weird things, and there was no kitchen at all. And we took a lot of time on the inside to have everything skim coated with lath and plaster, except for one room where there was a lot of water damage, has drywall. So the interior has been restored. I know that, again, that's not as relevant to the heritage in St. Catharines, unfortunately. But just proud that it can never be torn down because it is designated, and we're right on the face of Geneva Street, and very excited actually to put the final touches on the front of the house. Like the parking's on the side. I never even used the front door. You know, our backyard's lovely, but yeah, it's been a little sleeper on the front forever. So happy to have time and energy at this point to be focusing on that. So
Thank you very
much. Does that answer your question?
Beautiful. Yes, beautiful home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have someone to make the motion to approve the Heritage Grant for 4986 for the 134 Geneva? Lorraine?
Mhm.
And all in favor? Okay. I guess that's done.
Great. So thanks, Heather. I'll be in touch next week after the long weekend and just talk about next steps.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for your time and listening, and it was great to see some familiar faces as well. Take care.
Okay. Thanks, Heather.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
And it'll always be the Farmer Foss house as far as I'm concerned.
No. Why did I bring that up? Okay. Take care.
Thanks. Okay, moving on to item 7.4, the Fairview Park, John Gage Park. So at this point, I'm going to step back and let our illustrious vice chair take over.
Well, thank you, Brian. Okay, so as Brian had said, 7.4 Fairview Park and John Page Park. I think I saw Amanda is here.
I am here, yes.
Right, and you have a presentation for us, Amanda?
I do. It's about 5 or so minutes long.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my name is Amanda Knutson, for those of you who have not met me before. I've been with the city for about 17 years now. Previously worked in planning and development, but recently came over to Community Recreation and Culture Services to do some parks planning. So this is my very first parks renewal and park visioning project. And so I'm just going to take you through sort of what we're doing right now up at Fairview Park and John Page Park. And then we have a request of the committee today for consideration. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. If you're not familiar with Fairview Park or John Page Park, this is an aerial photo, and the blue is obviously the outline of the park boundary. Our project, the community visioning project, includes two parks actually. So John Page Park, which is up at Scott Street. That's where you see, playground equipment and the more active use in the park. The remainder, or the adjacent park, is actually, it's Fairview Park, but it's not technically a park. It has no formal name. It was previously Fairview Golf and Mini Putt for many years. And since that operation shuttered in about 2012, that large open space has really just been used for passive recreation. Last year, the city, or it could have been early this spring actually, the city recently constructed a labyrinth down near their Fairview Mall entrance to the park. Yeah, thanks, James. And we've constructed some asphalt pathways that give you better access through the park from Scott Street down to Geneva and also into the mall property. You can go to the next slide, James. So when we first started thinking about creating a new master plan for this park, we knew a couple of really important things about it. And one is that the Third Welland Canal used to traverse the property. It bisected it. Obviously, that canal is long buried, but we knew that there could be remnants associated with a canal underneath the park. And if you can go to the next slide. We also knew, just by what we saw on the property, that there were remnants of something. And now we know that the stone and concrete remnants that are visible in the park up at Scott Street are portions of an old railway swing bridge that used to swing over the canal and obviously let trains traverse from the north to the south and vice versa. You can go to the next slide, please. There's two main remnants there. This is the middle pier. The last one that you just saw would be the northern abutment. The southern abutment is long gone. Not sure when that disappeared. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So the process that we're going through right now is quite a long process in terms of creating this master plan and then implementing it over several years into the future. But for this portion of the project, the community vision exercise, we've hired consultants to basically help us through the process, and at the end of the day, give us a master plan, an actual drawing that will show what the concept of the new park layout is, and what's going to be in the park. And that would be a council approved plan. And then we would go away, for phase 2 and start implementing certain parts of that master plan, whether it's putting in new playground equipment or any part of that master plan that is approved by council. So that would happen in the future. So right now, this is really a visioning exercise. It's the paperwork part of it, creating the plan. So we have a council approved budget for this part of the project of $100,000. And so we've hired a consultant, actually a team of consultants, to help us get to this master planned end stage. We have negotiated with them through our normal RFP process to do several things. So first of all, our consultants are SGL Planning and Design. They're a well-known parks planning and urban design firm out of the GTA. And they're also working with ASI Heritage because there's such a historic component to the property. They have created for us a background review report, basically putting together everything we need to know about the park's history, how it's used today, any constraints that we know about the park. It's quite a lengthy document, and it includes a stage 1 archaeological assessment. So that assessment was done by ASI, and it's essentially a desktop research exercise where They have all this very thorough research about how the property was used from, you know, Indigenous, the times of Indigenous settlement to today. And so obviously there's a lot of focus in that report on the buried section of the Third Welland Canal, on the former railway that used to cross through the property on the western edge, and on the stone remnants that are visible in the park today. So we have that background information together. That's all complete. The next stage was to start public consultation, or consultation with many people, actually, not just members of the public. You know, we have reached out to committees of council, including the 2029 Bicentennial Task Force, the Heritage Advisory Committee. We have spoken to you already, the Recreation Master Plan Advisory Committee, and obviously the public. There's been quite a public consultation process here, primarily online, but also we went out to the apartment buildings in the area and, you know, had people fill out surveys. How you want to use the park? What would you like to see there in the future? It was really an information gathering exercise. We have completed that part of the process. The stage we're at right now is our consultants have identified all of the opportunities for the park and the constraints within the park. And they're putting together 2 concept alternatives, concept park layouts or draft master plans. And we'll be presenting those to the public and community partners, committees of council, task forces, etc., over the next couple of months to get feedback on the work that we've done, and which of the alternatives is preferred, or which parts of each alternative might make sense to meld together. And ultimately, we'll come up with a refined master plan that we're going to present to council for approval. I expect that would happen very early 2024, if not maybe even December of this year. Next slide, please, James. So as I mentioned, we've had this stage 1 archaeological assessment completed. It has extensive historical research in the documents, and it really highlighted for us the importance of a few pieces of history. That includes a section of former rail line. It would have been the Port Dalhousie and Thorold Railway. It ran along the western edge of the property, and it's obviously long been decommissioned. Section 4 of the Third Welland Canal obviously is buried beneath the property, and I've spoken about this swing bridge that would have been at the intersection of the canal and the railway that essentially rotated to allow trains to go over the canal. So we have these sort of main historical features or stories happening in the park, and so we've as this process has moved along, and as we've had this first archaeological assessment completed, we've learned that we need to really focus on the heritage of the property through the park redesign process. Can you go to the next slide there, James? This is just some old topographical mapping for you to look at. So the red in the very center is the outline of our park. You can very clearly see the old, the Third Welland Canal running across the page through the property and diagonally there. And then the old rail line at the western edge. There's also a photo of a gentleman named John Page, obviously the namesake of our park. He was the engineer of the Third Welland Canal. You can go to the next. Thank you. So now we're at this stage where we're creating these concept alternative plans, but what we've really learned so far is that the public, the Heritage Advisory Committee, the Welland Canals Task Force, I apologize, there's a typo there, it should read 2029 Welland Canals Task Force. All of those people have told us that cultural heritage is really important here, and it should be absolutely reflected in our master plan design. And so what does that mean for us now? Well, we haven't really taken a turn, but we've kind of expanded the scope of our project. And we've done some additional archaeological and cultural heritage work, and even more to come, just to make sure we're getting things right. So far, we've completed a stage 2 archaeological assessment. That was also done by ASI, and it involved a crew of archaeologists who went out on site and did some test pitting, looking for remnants and making sure that there wasn't anything underground that we needed to be aware of and mindful of in our park design. Secondly, we've had a structural assessment completed by Mark Schultz of the swing bridge remnants, the stone remnants. Mark is a professional engineer, and he also has his heritage designation. So the perfect guy for the job, essentially. Mark has completed a structural evaluation of those remnants. His report is not yet complete, but his findings are that the remnants are in actually really great shape. They need to have some weeds pulled from them and some remediation work done, but his findings and recommendation are that they absolutely be retained in situ in the park and remediated. You can go to the next slide, James. So what we hope to do now, obviously, is develop a master plan that respects the heritage, the historical significance of this property, the previous land uses, really highlight those swing bridge remnants, make sure that we're respecting the heritage of the property in any design that we come up with. And so we're going to be preparing something called a Statement of Significance and Cultural Heritage Evaluation Memo. And James Nielsen has very graciously offered to do that work in-house for us. James has been working with me on the project. So quite happy to have him on board. And the second item that we need to do some work on is knowing what the options for interpretation are. And so we've reached out to ASI again and asked them to give us a quote on preparing something called an interpretation options memo. We've got that back. It's about $4,000, and it will give us some great ideas on how actual physical design within the park, how we can incorporate in the physical what people see in the park, this interpretation of the heritage features in the park. And then down the road, sort of as part of the actual implementation, when we actually get into physically designing and building certain phases of the park, we'll need to do a strategic conservation memo that speaks to the swing bridge remnants. How are those remnants going to be remediated? What kind of work needs to be done, etc. So all of these things are beyond the scope of the project and the project's budget to date. So we are in a position now where we're looking for additional funding for this interpretations options memo. If you can go to the next slide, James. So why am I here today? Well, I'm here with an ask, a couple of asks. One, that the Heritage Advisory Committee receive my presentation. And secondly, that you all consider contributing a portion to a portion or all of the cost of that heritage interpretations options memo, using your heritage recognition fund that you have in place. And I understand you'll be deliberating that this afternoon as well. Before I take any questions from you, and happy to have questions, if you'd like to this evening or some other time get a really in-depth look at what we're doing in this project, you can go to stcatharines.ca, plan your park, where you can see all of the deliverables that have been created to date, the background review report, the stage 2 archaeological study, and you'll keep apprised of the process as it goes along. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Carlos?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you, Amanda, for that presentation. Very helpful. A couple of questions and a comment. First of all, is the intention that the full new park would be named John Page Park?
So we do have a separate parks naming policy, if you recall, Councillor. We have in our survey questionnaire through the first part of public consultation, kind of put our feelers out there to gauge community interest in whether the park should be renamed, named Fairview Park, named John Page Park, consolidate the parks. We've put that out there, and there seems to be an interest in consolidating the two parks and naming them both as John Page. That would have to go through a separate other formal process, though.
Thank you. And second question, I know there are some remnants on the other side of Scott, and I'm trying to remember now from the third canal, and you may know, or James may know, I know Brian would know for sure, there were no actual locks in this property, right?
There were never any locks in the park property itself. If you were to move a little bit farther southeast where the Kiwanis apartments are, that's where there would have been locks. Yeah. So really what's underneath the ground today, there aren't any walls. There's no canal walls. It was really a big open ditch. And any kind of structural elements related to the canal that were built would be outside the limits of the park.
Thank you. Third question through you, Madam Vice Chair, to James. In terms of considering that contribution, does the committee still have some funds that could be allocated to that if it's so decided?
Yep. So through the chair, so we have every year the committee has $5,000 essentially to spend on commemoration. Typically, we spend it on things like plaques, and last year we spent it on the headstones or at the Hospitaller Cemetery. So there is some flexibility there in terms of how we spend those funds. Essentially what we're running into is we're running out of time for this year because it's a use it or lose it scenario. So we either use the $5,000 that we have available to us by the end of December, or we lose it for this year. So unfortunately, because we didn't start up as a committee until last month, we kind of lost a lot of the runway that we would normally have for planning a project like that, that we would usually do. So in this case, what would happen is the money would actually go towards, instead of us creating some sort of commemoration or a product, I guess, like the headstones, we would actually be hiring a consultant to do that work, essentially to have that input into the overall plan and strategy. So that those funds are there and they're available. What's going to happen today is, for now, what we'll do as part of this item is we'll accept the information from Amanda, and then we'll move on to kind of the next item, which is a discussion of what we'd like to spend those funds on. So this is one option. There may be other ideas that people have that we might be able to. We only have 4 months, unfortunately, so we'd have to move quick on any other ideas that people might have. But if there are other ideas, we can discuss them then. And ultimately, at the end of today, though, we should kind of have an idea of where we want those funds to go, because we're just running out of
time. Thank you for that. And just to comment to Amanda and the whole committee, I hope that in the future there will not be any further asphalt path added in there. I have a real problem with asphalt in that it retains heat and is not particularly environmentally friendly. And there are other alternatives that are environmentally friendly and are also accessible. So just a comment. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Garcia. And I would agree with your point about the asphalt. We had that off Niagara Street. So I need to have a little bit of clarification, I think. I don't know if there's any other questions at this point, but I'll just jump in here. When the Kiwanis came to us, didn't they? Wasn't it last year or the year before, and wanted participation in this park? So Amanda, can you clarify what the Kiwanis role is with this park? Because they were very keen to do to offer some contributions to it.
So Kiwanis contributed, it's my understanding, to a portion of the labyrinth costs. And they have also approached us about having community gardens within the park so that, you know, residents in their buildings could grow fresh produce in behind, you know, the buildings on the park property. That is the extent of my knowledge about the Kiwanis involvement in the park itself.
So are we the only people that you've reached out to in terms of these funds?
Yes.
Okay. And then I wanted you to repeat something that you had said already. It would have been really handy to have had some of that background information, like the ASI information ahead of time. But you said it was all available at the site, stcatharines.ca, and then I missed the next part.
Oh, sorry. / plan your
Oh,
park.
okay. So there's, okay, gotcha. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Are there any other questions? Let's see. Anybody else have their hand up? Maria?
Yes, thank you. And great thanks to Amanda. Very interesting presentation. Amanda, I wonder if you can recall when you did that public consultation or the online survey, what sort of response did you get? Was it good or?
In terms of numbers, very good.
Yes.
We had about 275 people complete a survey. Hundreds more registered to keep updated on the project. And then I was able to visit personally about 8 of the apartment buildings in the area to talk to seniors or people who were maybe a bit more housebound and didn't have access to a web page or, you know, the Wi-Fi or the internet. So we have had a really good response so far. And I anticipate us having a pretty successful open house in the fall here with lots of people attending.
Good idea. Thank you, Amanda.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up. Amanda, you had mentioned that you had gone to the 2029 committee. So they probably mentioned to you that we're thinking, as part of the committee, we're thinking of a uniform plaquing, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so that would probably be folded into your piece as well, right? Anything to do with the canal?
Yeah, exactly. And I imagine that a lot of our work, well, first of all, once we have this interpretations option memo completed, we'll certainly be coming back, I think, to both committees, the committee and the task force, with that information. But I think that our work with the Bicentennial Task Force is really going to play out during the implementation stage when we're actually designing the physical elements that are going to be in the park, which, you know, could include plaquing and perhaps an interpretation pathway, like these types of things, to make sure that whatever we're doing in Parks and Rec is in line with what the task force wants to do along other canals, you know, the other canals in the city. So yeah, we're working with them pretty closely.
Okay, well, thank you very much. If I don't see any other questions or comments, so I guess, James, we would need a motion to receive this presentation.
Yep, so it should be up on the screen now.
Okay, would anyone like to make that motion?
We'll make that motion.
Was that you, Maria?
Yes, it is.
Okay, okay. Okay, so James, over to you.
Yep, well, we need to have a vote, I guess, on that.
Right. No, but so do you need to add her name to it?
No, we're okay. We'll make sure it's noted in minutes.
Gotcha. Okay. So voting on this, everyone in favor of the motion to just to receive the presentation? Okay.
Yeah, that passes.
There you go, James.
Great. Well, thanks. So moving on kind of to the next item, and thanks, Amanda. Oh, maybe she already left. Okay.
I didn't. I'm still here. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, somebody left on my screen.
Thanks for your attention.
But thanks, Amanda, for the presentation. Much appreciated. So the next item essentially that we'll be discussing is what to do with those funds that I mentioned before. So every year the Heritage Committee has $5,000 essentially to spend towards commemoration. We've heard one of the options today, and that's to put those funds towards the commemoration kind of strategy or options memo that ASI has offered to put together for us. I want to open kind of the floor to everybody if anybody has any other ideas. I wanted to let you know as well, we had one earlier in the year, we had one member of the public reach out to the mayor about commemorating Tim Horton, whose death is, it'll be the 50th anniversary of his death next year. And of course, he died in St. Catharines. That's the only item that I've had brought up to me from a member of the public. It's not an item necessarily that we need to address, that we'd have to address today, because the commemoration would potentially be next year if we felt that it was worthy of commemoration. But I just wanted to bring that up as the only option that I'm aware of right now. So I don't know if there's any other thoughts that people have had about different plaquing projects or anything that you felt that the money could go towards, but this is the place to kind of discuss it and figure out what we'd like to do with those funds this year.
So James, I'm not sure if I'm still, sharing.
Yeah, you're still, yeah,
Oh, okay.
because I think because in this case, because the funds would go to, if the group decided that they wanted to support this project, because Brian works for ASI, essentially he wouldn't be able to be part of this vote and discussion. But yeah, so you're technically still the vice chair, or still the chair for a little bit.
Thanks, James. Gail, I see you have your hand up.
Oh, I just want to say that I think that we should give the money to this very fine project. I think it's an interesting project. I don't know the area at all, and it was beautifully described. And we're running out of time, as James has said. So I would approve, very much approve, moving ahead with this. That's
Thank you, Gail.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? The comment that I was going to raise was that the other plaquing project that we talked about was Collier Mill. So if Robert was here, he would mention Collier Mill, because I know he and Brian did a lot of work on Collier Mill. But we put that aside because of the 2029 Welland Canal commemoration, the fact that we're talking about consistent plaquing throughout the Welland Canal area, and the Collier Mill was on the I think what second Welland Canal, or second Welland Canal. So that's the only other plaquing that I remember us talking about in the recent months.
Yeah, and through the chair, that's the only one I can recall as well. Didn't mention it because we kind of decided to shelve that for now, and we know the work is done and it's ready to go for whenever the task force project is moving forward. But yeah, I also just wasn't sure if anybody had any ideas that they thought we should pursue at this time as well. But if anybody does have, you're more than welcome to bring them up.
Right. I think the 2029 committee has such a wide reach through St. Catharines that those are most of the ideas that I had thought of in terms of plaquing. So I don't know if anybody else has any other ideas or comments, questions about the use of that funds, suggestions for plaquing, other than anything to do with the Welland Canal. It doesn't look like it.
Mark has his hand up.
Oh, Mark. Oh, sorry, Mark. I see your hand up.
How far along is it, the Welland Canal projects to figure out if we can use it for anything there, for plaquing?
So my response, Carlos, did you want to? You're in the committee as well as I am. But as my perspective is that we're not very far along at this point. We recently had a wonderful session that sorry, I'm waiting for a call from my doctor, so that's why I keep leaving it on. We had a presentation and we went through a democracy to figure out what our ideas were in terms of visioning for the canal. But I think we're waiting at this point to get the report back from the people who conducted or facilitated that session. So I wouldn't say that we're very far along. Carlos, would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with that. I certainly don't think that we're anywhere near deciding on a consistent branding throughout the signage that we would like to see. So this is an opportunity to do something in a very similar heritage area, because the third canal is there. And as I said, there are remnants, if you're familiar, just on the other side of Scott Street. And this is a park that it can get so much use because once the golf course disappeared, it became an unused area that people were just using walking back and forth to go to the Fairview Mall. But other than that, it has the real opportunity for people in all those apartment buildings over on Scott and elsewhere, and the Kiwanis building. And also, if that project ever gets built on the old Y, it would add a lot of residents in that area too that could benefit from that park.
Thank you. Thank you. Back to you, Mark. Was that your hand still up? Is it a legacy hand or?
No, I put it back up again.
Okay.
Brian had mentioned something about the Welland House plaque.
Yes, that's right.
I don't know where we would be on with that. I know there's still construction there, it might get in the way, but if it can be made now and put up at a later date, I don't know.
Thank you for suggesting that. James?
Yeah, so through the chair, so as part of the Welland House kind of cleanup, they are essentially storing materials from that as part of the documentation and salvage strategy that was put into place after the fire. And so we expect that one day there might be a development there on that property, and they are expected to use those materials in some way, which I imagine would be part of a commemoration strategy. And so there might be an opportunity through that down the road, but they're only just now kind of finishing up the cleanup, right? So that could be years away before we have something there in place. So I don't know if we'd want to maybe package a commemoration plan in with whatever goes there down the road, or it might be a little premature to do that today, I guess is what I'm getting at.
So then, James, if we do make a motion and it carries for the $4,000 towards this, that leaves us with $1,000, right? But what could we do with that $1,000, or would it be gone?
Yeah. So
think about Mark's project.
Yeah. So through the chair, at the end of the year, it would be gone. So the cost to make a plaque and get like a board and everything done. So we had the NS&T plaques that were done a couple of years ago. I believe those came in at around $1,500 a board, because you're paying for a graphic designer to put it all together and all that stuff. So it adds up, I guess. That's what I can say. And so I don't know if the $1,000 would get us very far. I just don't know. It's hard to project without having kind of a project in mind, and that we can send out to somebody and say, here's what we want to do. How much would it cost? We certainly could find out if that $1,000 could get us that far. And I mean, if we have the money, we might as well try to spend it, right? So I'm happy to kind of pursue that if we wanted to. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from anyone? Okay. Carlos?
Again.
Oh, you're muted, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Just relating to that potential plaque, what if the committee were to, like Amanda did say, up to $4,000, and maybe, and there could be other sources, what if the committee were to make a motion that once James can identify what the cost of a plaque would be for the Welland House, that the balance be committed to John Page Park, something to that effect, so you could cover them both.
Okay. So James?
Okay, I will need a second to craft a motion in mind. So
you don't have to do what I suggested. It's just a suggestion. So
yeah,
are there any comments or questions about Councillor Garcia's suggestion? Anybody?
Maybe I can just jump in quickly a little bit.
Sure.
Just in terms of the funding opportunities, because you guys are limited as far as how much you have to spend every year. Commemoration on like a new development is typically something that we would expect a developer to cover when they are developing on something like the Welland House. So it is, like James described, you have a timing issue if you'd like it done immediately, but it is eventually something that we would expect a developer to pay for.
Okay. thank you, Margaret. I did remember one other thing that we had talked about in terms of plaquing, James and committee, was that we talked about plaques on heritage homes. We talked about should we be supplying it, because there was a conversation about you having maybe some blank plaques, or should we get some blank? So should we get some plaques? So that's something else to think about. Gail, you had something else you wanted to add?
The word came in from BN. What about the oil fountain? That has got to be not costly to simply use the money towards getting that back in place downtown. Downtown, have you been there recently, is a disaster zone. Yes, to have the oil fountain, that vase simply done, couldn't we put some money towards that? Get that vase back up, get some flowers, even if it's fake flowers in it. That would not be costly. Otherwise, it's going to sit in storage like so many things and just be ignored.
I'm not sure if that would be covered under commemoration. James, over to
Well,
you.
I think, I mean, it's your funds essentially. So if you decided that was a worthy project, if the committee agreed as a whole that was worthy, then I personally would have no concerns about applying some of those funds to that project. Okay. I think a project like that, as much as it is a small earn, I think it'd be surprising how much it will cost to restore that. I don't know how far the $1,000 would go, but I could always let. Essentially, there's going to be an ask, I believe, in next year's budget for the funds to be able to restore that, and we could ask for that $1,000 or whatever's left over to go towards that if we wanted to. Okay. I just don't know off the top of my head what the actual dollar amount is requested.
Okay.
So is there a timeline for the contribution that Amanda's looking for before the end of the year, obviously? But Amanda, is there a time that you need these funds by? Because it sounds like there's some other possibilities here that people are talking about, and perhaps we need to investigate that a bit more before committing the funds. Amanda?
Yeah, understood. I don't want to say sooner rather than later, but it right now is the perfect time to be preparing this heritage interpretation options memo, because we are just starting to put together what the park layout will look like. So we would be looking for the funds, this early fall. Otherwise, it could cause some delays in our project.
And Amanda, do you have any other sources that you could possibly go to for the funds?
That is something I would have to, we've taken a look, believe me, we've already looked to try and find, some extra money elsewhere. We've already moved around funds to pay for the stage 2 archaeological, which was outside of the scope, and the structural assessment, which was outside of the scope. And so this is a sort of our last idea is to come to the Heritage Committee to ask for the funds for this part of the project.
Okay. So it sounds like we need to make a decision here on whether or not 4,000 and then we save the 1,000 for something, or follow some other plan.
Yeah.
Vice Chair, my apologies, but I have to excuse myself. I have another commitment, but thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Garcia.
So through the chair, through the vice chair, I think my proposal, I think right now might be, if everybody's in favor of contributing funds to this project, to the Fairview Mall project, that we make that part of the motion, and then I think any remaining funds, because we might be talking about maybe a few $100s here or there, right? So it might be awkward to only fund this project 97% of the way or something like that, right? So I think what we'd want to do is say, yep, we're in favor of contributing the funds toward this project. Whatever's remaining, we could always discuss it at the next meeting. I can do some work on my end to see what I can find in terms of costs to put something together, and then we can throw some ideas out there and see what we can get. And I think that's kind of the cleanest way to do it, because right now, while I was sitting here trying to craft up a motion with a lot of different options and ifs and buts, it's a little challenging. So I think it might be cleaner, and for Amanda's kind of peace of mind as well, to know that she can move forward with this work if we agree with it, and kind of get things started on her end, because it's a lot of work that she's doing with the consultants. And yeah, if it's a project that we believe in and think that it deserves the funds, then I think she'd appreciate knowing about that today.
Okay, and what will the amount, when will we know the final amount from Amanda's proposal request? Amanda?
I actually have the quote in hand. It's 3,800 and something plus a certain amount of taxes. So I can provide that. I believe that the upset cost is $4,000. Like it wouldn't be any more than that. So it's somewhere between 3,800 and $4,000. And we wouldn't be, expecting the committee to, if when we get the invoice in and say it comes in at $4,500, we wouldn't be then expecting the committee to pay that additional 500. I think the most we're looking for is 4 here.
Okay. All right. Well, do we have a motion? Do we have an motion? Oh, sorry, Mark, you have another question, comment?
Yes. So if the amount does go over, say, $500, like you said in your example, where would that $500 be coming from then?
We have a very small contingency of probably less than $1,000 now that we would use from the project for it. Meant for things like, maybe creating signage or posters or flyers, but we do have that tiny bit of reserve that we could dip into. I'm not concerned that it will go over budget. These things typically, it's not like an archaeological study where like, oh, you never know what you're going to find. It could cost more and then more again. This is one set of deliverables that they've quoted us on. The only reason I think it could get higher is if it was pushed maybe into 2024 and their consulting fees go up, their hourly rate, something like that.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Mark.
When was their quote good until?
It's a very good question. Let me pull it up a minute. Looks like 90 days from the day it was issued, which was July. Sorry, the screen just keeps disappearing. One moment. July 28th, 2023. So in July, August, September, October. So it's good until the end of October.
Okay. So seeing no further questions or comments, can we have a motion then?
So here's what I've crafted. Let me know if you have any thoughts on this, but essentially it says that the STHEC recommends using up to $4,000 of its 2023 Heritage Recognition funds on the commemoration strategy for Fairview and John Gage Park, and that the STHEC explore potential uses for the remaining funds at its September meeting. So the intent of that is I'll do some homework over the next month and try to see if I can come up with some options and prices and whatnot, and we'll essentially deal with it at that point. I think that's probably the cleanest way to do it. But if anybody has any recommendations or suggestions, I'm happy to make some edits on the fly.
Okay, thanks, James. So did we have, do we have anybody making that motion?
So Maria has, I think Maria and John both had their hands up.
Okay.
Go for it, John.
Okay.
Go for it, John.
So John?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, thank you. And so all in favor? Okay, it looks like it's passed there, James.
Great. Well, thanks, Amanda.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your attention and your consideration and your great questions. And we're looking forward to seeing you again on this matter pretty soon.
Maybe we could have a tour.
Would love that. We'll go for a walk through the
Great. Absolutely. Thanks. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. Okay, Brian, back to you for. Oh, there he is. Okay, I turn it over to you, esteemed chair.
Well, I was just chomping at the bit there I wanted to say stuff, but oh
I
well.
know you were. I'm not surprised.
And you did. So
Well,
surreptitiously, yes, you may.
sir, I scooped in under the wire, so to speak. Okay, yeah, I'm dying to know what ASI might have found in their digs.
Yeah.
The stage 2, I'll have to look at the reports about that, because they never tell me anything. Okay, item 7.6, the Ontario Heritage Trust, the Lieutenant Governor's Award. James, you're going to give us an overview.
Yeah, so every year the Ontario Heritage Trust has their Lieutenant Governor's Award, and essentially it's for excellence in conservation work. And internally, we were talking about Rodman Hall as being a really good opportunity or a good candidate for this award. And so we're working internally to create a nomination for them. It involves getting references from various people and kind of putting together a package that'll be submitted to the Ontario Heritage Trust. I don't know, I'm sure everybody's very familiar with Rodman Hall, but I'm not sure if everybody's been there since all the work has been undertaken. So I wanted to just show you Rodman Hall's website that they have up now, because they have some really top-notch photos on it of the work that they've done. And it's really stunning, the amount of work that's gone into it. So you can see here. So Rodman Hall essentially has been converted into a boutique hotel and event space. It's 13 rooms, if I'm not mistaken. Just stunning work, really no expense spared in a lot of ways. And so I've gone through the house a few times now. It really is kind of top-notch conservation work, and I really do think that it's an award that this would definitely merit an award. So what I'm requesting of the committee is whether you feel the same. And if so, if the committee would be willing to write a letter of recommendation as part of the application package. The application is due at basically the end of September. It's a really short kind of window. So we'll have to put something together relatively quickly. But I think it's definitely a building in St. Catharines that's extremely important. And the amount of work and conservation work that has been put into it, I think it leads by example. I think it's something that the Heritage Committee should feel really good about having in their backyard. So I'm hoping that you'd agree. And yeah, if you'd be willing to write a letter of recommendation, that'd be fantastic. So feel free to discuss, I guess.
Are there any guidelines about what we should say in our recommendation if we decide to nominate?
I think through the chair, I think what you'd want to do is speak to the importance of this building in the city, because I mean it's clearly probably the gem in terms of heritage in the city, probably one of the most ornate buildings in the city, and then speaking to the quality of the work that was done. So I don't know how many people have been through the building and have seen the work in person. I imagine maybe we could set up a date and time for people to go and visit, because I know Nino is really like showing it off, but we'd have to kind of arrange for that to happen. But if there is anybody that's been through the building and feels really good about the work that's been done there, then you can chime in and feel free to write that section if you'd like.
Gail?
Well, I have been through. I went through with the Canadian University Women's tour in May 28th, and it is knowing the building as I did from before when I was on the board of the Rodman Hall Arts Association years ago. And they have done a brilliant job of making it into a boutique hotel. They will need more, certainly the Ontario Heritage Foundation, which I also was on the board of a gazillion years ago, will need more than just a recommendation from the Heritage Advisory Committee or the Planning Department of St. Catharines. And Brian and I talked about this earlier, and we're both on the board of the Historical Society of St. Catharines, and we're going to propose that they also send in a recommendation to the Ontario Heritage Trust Foundation. 2 terms ago, I think it was, on the Heritage Committee got Justin Nichols, who was on our last term. They got Marty Mako and I collected a bunch of letters together from schools and what have you, and he got an award from the Heritage Foundation, and he also got a scholarship. So it can be done, but I think since letters need to be in by September, that we all have to move fast on this, because it's a deadline.
And through the chair, I'm more than welcome, or more than happy to craft something and get the ball started, and then people are welcome to edit and add to that as well if it helps. So because I think we've written letters in the past for different groups, but I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, and I think I helped with that. So if that makes everybody's life easier, I'm more than welcome, or I'm more than happy to help.
Well, if we could see what you've crafted first, maybe then that would give Brian and I something we could work with a little different for the Historical Society.
Yeah,
Brian, if that's okay with Brian.
Yep, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Maria, you've got a comment, question?
Yes, a question. I think I'm behind the times with the Rodman Hall situation. I understood it too in the past, the public art gallery affiliated with Brock University, but then it was sold to a private developer, and now or recently it is privately owned and operated as a hotel.
That's correct. That's right.
And the developer has invested in the continuation of heritage features.
Yeah, so through the chair, they've really spared no expense. Something. It just that's an understatement, I think, because they really have done a lot of work on this building, and it really is the gem of the city. I think it's stunning, to be honest with you. So
right, the pictures look lovely. Yeah. Thank you.
The architect who was working with Nino was Lou Marcantonio, who was with in the meeting earlier today.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lorraine.
Oh, you're muted, Lorraine.
Just a comment. So Maria Nino was the one who was instrumental in redeveloping the rubber boot factory in Merritton, part of St. Catharines, and also the former Domtar plant. So turning those into 2 restaurants. So he has, and he won awards for that, I believe. I think I've covered it in an article I wrote or something. I can't remember the name of the awards he won, but for his restoration work. So yeah, he's done an amazing job with this. I haven't seen it from the inside, only the outside, and I would be very interested in going on a tour if possible.
Yeah, it's nice to see a commercial developer, investing money in the heritage aspect. Yeah. Thank you, Lorraine. Yeah.
So yeah, and I would support that and actually help you write the letter if you'd like, James.
John Crawley.
Yes, Holly and I went through the building because Nino's a good friend of Holly's, I believe. We went through the building site probably around the 90% completion phase, and he's just done a fabulous job on that building, and I highly recommend it. Supporting it.
And I also, because it's they even took the outbuilding out the outside and made it into a fabulous separate little suite for hotel visitors, which is really remarkable, and it's full of very expensive antiques.
Oh.
Of the period. Yeah, very. I mean, I have some antiques, but I'm nothing like what Nino.
Well, and through the chair also, they have in the event space, they've actually taken the stained glass from the old Fort Mansion building and have put it in there, and it's phenomenal. Yeah, it's all been restored and everything. So
they're to be commended for sure.
Okay, so I guess we need a motion that we're going to recommend nominating Rodman Hall for the award, and that we will write a letter of support.
Can I make that motion, Brian? I'd be glad to.
You may indeed.
I'd be glad to.
So do we have any other questions or comments about the motion? And if not, then I guess all in favor of it?
Oh, I'm not sure if Rachel was putting her hand up for a question or. You're a little choppy, Rachel, so it's hard to.
It's all right. No, I just wanted to vote. I assumed we were voting immediately after the motion and that there would be no questions. So my hand was up to vote.
Oh, good. Thanks. Just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Yep. So all in favor of it? I guess that's done then. James, are you going to craft something and then we'll,
Yeah, Chair, I'll circulate something. I'll try to get to it next week and circulate kind of a draft, and then everybody can kind of build on that with ideas and thoughts and whatnot. And hopefully we can have something done sooner rather than later. Because yeah, like I said, the deadline is actually I think it's like early October, but I really want to have it done for the end of September to make sure we aren't running at the last minute to try to get it done. So.
Okay. I guess we're doing item 7.7, the introductions, because we didn't do that last time.
Yeah. Through the chair. Yeah, we didn't do introductions last time. I know pretty much almost everybody knows each other. I mean, 2 full meetings now, we've gotten to know each other pretty well, but Rachel and Maria are new to the group. And so I thought it'd be good for everybody to just kind of introduce themselves and maybe give a little bit of their background and where their expertise is, or why they're interested, and why they're on the committee, or why they want to volunteer to be on the committee. I'm happy to start. I mean, everybody knows who I am. I'm James Hilson. I'm the Heritage Planner of the city. But I've been a Heritage Planner for over a decade now. I've been at the city for, it was 2 years this month. And it's been great. I grew up down here in St. Catharines and in Welland. Most of my work had been done in Toronto, in the Toronto area. But when this position opened up a couple years ago, I jumped on it because it was a chance to kind of go back home and do some work in the city that I know really well. And so, yeah, my background, I'm an urban planner based on my education, but I kind of gravitated towards heritage really early and kind of made it my niche. So, yeah, and I mean, I've met all of you in person now. I think, well, maybe not Rachel yet, but Maria I met in person. Yeah, this is a really good bunch, and it's been real pleasure kind of to get to know everybody and kind of tap into everybody's brains, because there's so much knowledge here. It's been really great. So I'll pass it along to Margaret, I think.
Thanks, James. For those that don't know, I'm Margaret Jospovic. I am the manager of planning services at the city. So heritage is one of the aspects that falls under our planning division, a very important aspect at it. So, and we're happy to have James, who does a great job. Thank you.
Alex is our student. I don't know if I want to put him on the spot or not, but he's welcome to introduce himself if he'd like to. Otherwise, we'll move to Brian. Yeah, well, we'll just move to Brian. That's okay, Alex.
Okay. Okay. Well, I was, of course, born and raised in St. Catharines. I've been doing heritage research, historical research, genealogy, locally related, and of course, all across Southern Ontario for, well, since about 1975. I've worked for the Ontario government in the Land Registry Office. I currently work for ASI. I'm the staff historian, working on all their archaeological reports. And of course, I've been with the city's Heritage Committee forever and ever and ever. That's all about me.
Lorraine, as vice chair, you can go second.
Thanks, James. So I am a retired school principal, but I'm still working as a consultant, working for different groups in the area of assessment and literacy, and doing some historical pieces as well. I teach at Brock and at Queen's, and I'm the editor and writer of Meriton Matters, and have been since its inception, since 2001. So very interested in the history of the city I was born in and raised in.
David? Oh, you're muted, David. Sorry, I put you on the spot. I'm just going around with my screen.
Okay, sorry. Anyhow, I was born in Kitchener, and I grew up in a house which by Kitchener standards was pretty old. It's about 1890. And then I moved to St. Catharines and fairly quickly ended up in a house here in Port Dalhousie that was built in 1840 or thereabouts. And so I just like old things. And I was also involved with when somebody wanted to put up a 33-story tower in the middle of Port Dalhousie. I was, along with Carlos and a few other people, we headed up the opposition to that particular endeavor. So I'm interested in heritage.
Great. Mark? Oh, you're muted, Mark. Sorry.
There we go. I'm Mark. I've been living in Niagara all my life. I did live in Guelph temporarily, where I got my start in masonry restoration with my father, and that's kind of where the heritage bug got me. It wasn't until we were doing a heritage project where it's like, I guess this was for me. So I kept it going. I have my own company now here in St. Catharines, and I've been lucky enough to work on projects like Fort Mississauga. We did some investigatory work, and Brock's Monument earlier this year too. So that's been pretty cool. And I'm been on the Heritage Committee. This is my second term now. And I'm a musician too. I play the drums in multiple bands, including some recording projects, and an avid BMX rider and cyclist along the beautiful trails that we have here and along the escarpment. And that's another thing, the heritage that we have here is the heritage landscape. It's incredible. It's like some people think that they don't know, well, like what to do in Niagara. It's like, well, you can go on a walk and you could find out a new trail every single week, like for the year. Right now I'm just rambling, but well, thank you. I'm glad to be here anyway.
John Crawley.
Well, I'm a past member of both committees that we had before the amalgamation. I was born and raised in St. Catharines. I left in the 60s, came back 16 years ago. I own 2 heritage houses on Queen Street in the Queen Street Heritage District. One built in 1860 and mine in 1869. So,
Gail?
Yes, I'm from Calgary, actually, just to be an outlier here, but was raised in Toronto. And as I said earlier, I was on the Ontario Heritage Foundation, and that's because I was for many, many years at the Central Library of Special Collections, which is all local history and genealogy. And I belong to the Ontario Genealogical Society and to the Ontario the OCA, Ontario Conservation, Architectural Conservation of Ontario. I'm a member of them, and I give to the Port Dalhousie branch, and David may or may not remember me, but I made many presentations before the OMB against that tower for you guys. And
I remember that.
I always give money. I've been in your house, probably collected money and did things early on. And I'm a writer. I have hundreds of publications, and they're mainly on, some are political, but they're mainly on heritage issues and local history. And I am on the board for, I think for the last 25 years on the Historical Society of St. Catharines, along with Brian. And I belong to the Niagara Arts Association. So arts, writing, heritage, history, I live and breathe it. And my husband just doesn't understand why I can't just give up and just let it all go. But that's who I am.
Thanks, Gail. Maria?
Yes, hi. Gosh, I have very few, if any, formal credentials in the area. I'm in awe of the expertise that surrounds me here, and I hope to learn as I go on. I was born in England and came over when I was 3, so that's a long time ago. I don't remember being hatched over there and coming here. But I grew up mainly in the North Toronto area in North York, and developed a keen interest at that time in the local history in North York. I've lived in St. Catharines for about 10 years, and I'm still finding my way around the streets and the neighborhoods. My work environment for many years was in the social services, as a women's shelter worker in North York, one of the first women's shelters established in the Toronto area. And also in volunteer coordination, which is a keen interest of mine still. I am a volunteer with the St. Catharines Museum and Welland Canal Center. I'm a docent there, and I'm on their advisory committee as well as the Heritage Committee. And prior to these involvements, I was a member of the Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee with the City of St. Catharines. When I retired from the working world a number of years ago, I took up the interesting area of working in an antiques co-op in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and spent a few years there coping with the concept of co-ops and furthered my interest in antiques and vintage collecting. I have a keen interest in history, North American history and British history, and find it endlessly fascinating to learn more and more about the Niagara region and specifically the St. Catharines area. I live in Port Weller East on a dead-end street, and I've gathered a lot of information about the area and just am fascinated to know of the history of my particular neighborhood. I've been doing a little bit of personal research about the Ontario farmerettes because my interest does remain with women's issues in the past and present. And I find that a very interesting part of the region's history as well, the role women played working on the home front to sustain the food production during the First and Second World Wars. Other than that, that's about it for me. Thank you for welcoming me so warmly into the advisory committee.
Rachel?
Hi. Apologies, first of all, for the feed. Hopefully you can hear me, even if the video feed is not ideal. If you can't, let me know. I can send you a little maybe typed bio or something. I was born in St. Catharines, grew up in Port Dalhousie, then moved away to school. I have a degree from Queen's in history, and then I just lived in a bunch of different places in Ontario and the rest of the world. Most recently in Ottawa, where I got a job with Parks Canada, and I work technically for national office, although when I do go into the office and I'm not working from home, I'm in lovely Butler's Barracks, which was an incredible restoration project, and it's fantastic. You're probably familiar with it, Mark, since you've worked in Fort Mississauga and areas connected to Fort George in that area. And although nothing that I do at work really ties itself to heritage, I am on the policy and planning committee. So there's a lot of research involved, but it more has to do with writing policy around real property. Parks Canada has a massive real property portfolio, as you can imagine. It's the largest federal landowner. So it's fascinating, it's varied. And I really like Mark's point about natural heritage as well. I think that's a huge part of what I do. And I know it's not a big part of what the committee does, but I find it very fascinating. I'm also a bike rider, but not a trail bike rider. That is not mountain bike. So I do like the trails along the Welland Canal. I go for cycles quite often and they're wonderful. I really appreciate being a part of this committee. I'm looking forward to learning more. I have an interest in history, although I haven't had the opportunity to explore it so much in my work life. Although there is some tie-ins with Parks Canada every now and again. And I'm currently located, I moved back to St. Catharines in 2020. I don't recommend moving during the pandemic, but I arrived safely and I've been here ever since. Been nice being to my family, and I'm currently located in Meriton and have read Meriton Matters actually before I knew your connection with it, Lorraine. So I think I saw it leaving Lester D's Diner and picked up a copy the first time, and I think I picked it up in a couple of places when I see it. But I'm not a faithful reader because I never know when it's coming out. Every time I see it, I just sort of pick it up and read it. But I do appreciate local news. Great. And thank you very much. I'm excited to learn more.
I could give you all the back copies you want, Rachel, to read.
I'd love it. I'd love it. Send it away. That's about it from me. Just it's a privilege to be on the committee, and I'm really excited to learn more and work with all of you.
Thanks. So I think that's everybody. Usually, so Tammy Kate is our director, and she occasionally attends as well. She wasn't able to attend today, but maybe when next time she attends, I'll make her do an introduction. But yeah, that's our group, and usually we have Andrew Humanock here as well. He is the basically he owns the oldest house in the city, or his foundation does, the Brown Homestead out on Pelham Road. And we have Robert Speck as well, who's been a long-time member of the committee. So maybe we'll put them on the spot next week as well, or next month as well. So I don't think we need to do a motion for this item. I think we're okay.
No. I just have to say with Maria, seeing you're on Port Weller East, I'm on the west side. So let's talk history sometime.
Let's do that, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, item 7.8, committee schedule.
Yeah, so through the chair, apparently we're supposed to vote on the schedule. We all know what our schedule is. We always meet the last Thursday of every month. But I did want to let everybody know that I do have to make a couple changes this year because I'm not going to be here for a couple of the meetings. So I just want to move a couple of the dates. So our meeting at the end of October, we were supposed to meet on the 26th. I'm going to be at the National Heritage Conference in Ottawa that weekend. And so won't be there for that meeting, but we're going to move it to November 2nd. If too many people say, no, that doesn't work for me, then we can find an alternative date. But it's just easier to push it back a week. And then December 28th, that's week between Christmas and New Year's. I'll be off that week. So we'll probably do the meeting the week before Christmas on the 21st. But if that changes as we get closer to the Christmas holidays, I'll let everybody know. But that's what I'm thinking right now. So we do need a motion that we approve the schedule for the year. Clerks would like us to do that. So
you're going to cheat me out of my December birthday gift by moving the meeting a week before.
Oh, my apologies. I didn't know.
Really? That's the nerve.
I think we did that last year too, and I didn't even realize it was your birthday. So
yeah. Anyway, okay. Thanks, James. Can we have a motion to, or does anybody have a problem with those dates? First of all,
I'll have to double check my calendar.
Okay. If you find that there's an issue, just get in touch with me. And if enough people say, sorry, November 2nd doesn't work for me, we'll figure out a different date. But yeah, unfortunately, I won't be here for it. So
So it's November 2nd, and then the other one is December 21st. Okay, I'm putting it in my old-fashioned calendar right now.
And if you want, if it would help, I can send out an email to remind everybody. Just because I'm sure 3 months from now we might forget these things. So happy to send that out.
Rachel, did you have a question or comment? I thought I saw your hand up.
I was just I'll send an email about whether the dates work or not. I don't think the 21st is going to work. I have holidays planned, but I'll confirm that by email to you, James.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, it's always the meeting before Christmas can be a challenge anyway. So yeah, it's understandable.
Okay, so I guess we should have a motion to receive the information from James and that we approve the proposed schedule. Does anybody want to make that motion? Maria? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And all in favor? Yeah, that's done. We have no business arising. Updates from the subcommittees on designations. I guess 25 Henrietta is up for grabs right now.
Yeah, so through the chair. So Andrew is our chair of the designations subcommittee, but he's not here today. Brian, you're the vice chair. I guess if you wanted to speak on it, you could, or I can speak to what we talked about. But essentially what we did at our last meeting, or our first meeting, was go over a rubric for how we will evaluate all of the properties that are not going to be within the Downtown Heritage Conservation District. So all the properties that are on our Heritage Register that are outside the downtown are going to be evaluated, or reevaluated, I guess, and then prioritized. So we can figure out which properties we want to propose for individual designation. And this is all part of Bill 23 and having to deal with that. And so we came up with a rubric. We kind of ran through each item or each criteria under Ontario Regulation 906 and just kind of talked about each one. And we came up with something I think is going to hopefully work. Our plan is to, at our next meeting, everybody has some homework. They're actually going to be doing an evaluation of 25 Henrietta, which I'll speak to in a second, just to kind of see if everybody's coming out on the same page with these and seeing if there are any issues. So it'll be a nice little kind of test for this rubric. In terms of 25 Henrietta, the committee recommended that it should be added to our register. So bring that back to the group today to vote on a motion essentially that will then go to council. I've reached out to the owner and have not heard anything yet. It's possible that I could hear from them tomorrow for all I know, but I'll deal with that if that happens. But essentially, if there is a motion passed today to recommend approval, or sorry, recommend listing that property on the register, it'll then go to council probably in a month from now, and then added to the register. At that point, it will be part of our group of properties outside the downtown core that will then be evaluated for and prioritized for designation. But at least for now, assuming it goes to council and gets approved for adding to the register, it'll be protected from demolition for the next 2 years. So I think that's about it. In terms of why 25 Henrietta was recommended for for listing, because the criteria under Ontario Regulation 906 now say that you have to meet some of those criteria in order to be listed. We had to go through kind of the entire rubric. I'll just share my screen because it might be easier just to do that. So essentially, we figured out that it probably meets at least 3 of the criteria. So the first criteria is that the property has design value or physical value because it's rare, unique, representative, or an early example of a style, type, expression, material, or construction method. We felt that it was a representative example of a craftsman bungalow. In our system, we have a construction date of 1912. What's interesting is I was just during my lunch hour today kind of doing a little bit of research and looking at old St. Catharines standards and found that A.E. Nicholson, who was a very prominent architect in the early 1900s in St. Catharines, he might have actually designed this house because there's an ad in the newspaper from 1906 that says that he's designing a house on behalf of Stuart Walkinshaw.
Wow.
So there's potentially a link there. It doesn't say definitively that house was meant for this location. It could have been another house. It's one of those things where it's probably the case, but I don't know 100% if it's true or not. But at the very least, representative example of a craftsman bungalow because it's quite the nice house. In terms of historical value, we found that the property is associated with Stuart Maxwell Walkinshaw. And he was a musician and experienced accompanist who was involved in the early days of the motion picture industry. So most of his life, actually, as much as he was in St. Catharines, he actually spent a lot of his life in the US. And he was working basically in theaters, accompanying movies during the early days when they didn't have sound at theaters and in movies. So Walkinshaw was a partner of Lyman A. Chow, who was a big deal at the time. He's a big enough deal that he has his own Wikipedia page. And he was the first to use a phonograph for background sound effects in movies. And was well known for providing sound effects for motion pictures during the era's earliest days. So kind of neat that there's a little bit of kind of I wouldn't say Hollywood connection, but there's definitely a early kind of entertainment industry connection between the owner of this house and kind of the greater entertainment kind of, you know what I'm getting. Sorry, I'm not tongue-tied at the moment. But and then the property has contextual value because it's physically, functionally, visually, or historically linked to its surroundings. And we felt that it's historically linked to Stuart Maxwell Walkinshaw, who donated the land that became the nearby Walkinshaw Park. So that's kind of its contextual value. So between all these things, and maybe more, if more research was done on the property, we might be able to uncover some additional material. But this is certainly enough to suggest that the property merits listing on our register. If anybody has any questions about it, I'm happy to answer. And Brian did a chain of ownership as well and looked at that. And yeah, I think we have enough to be able to suggest that, yes, it certainly merits listing on the register.
Yeah, I mean, the title search was, you know, showing that the property was, you know, historically tied to the Hayner and Dietrich families for just about a century. And then Walkinshaws were intermarried with the Goring family, which is another early loyalist family. So there's all that layer of stuff as well. I can easily see where you look at the house, a picture of it, that it probably is a Nicholson and Macbeth design, or certainly Nicholson, because it's got some of his kind of characteristic hallmarks to it. And from the title search that I saw, there were mortgages and things right around that 1906, 1900, 1906 period. So I really do think that it probably is that house. So I would say that it's well worthy of being listed. Maybe I can take another peek at some of the records in light of this and try and determine if it is that house from 1906. Lorraine.
Just two little things. One is just, first of all, to tell you that I did a little searching on the Walkinshaw name as well, and was very pleased to find out he had a few Meryton connections. Nothing that would make an article in the Meryton Matters, but he had, you know, was a witness at a wedding and et cetera, et cetera. So very tangential, but, and then I wanted to ask James if we could see the rubric after you try, you know, see if it works. As a professional rubric maker who makes money that way, I would just love to see the rubric that was created. And it would be very good for, you know, as we're looking at the houses that you suggest, to keep that in mind as well too, if possible.
Yeah, through the chair, I have the rubric in front of me if we want to share it now, or if you think that it would be better to do it once we kind of have nailed it down after we go through everything next in a couple weeks from now.
Sure, give it a test run and then show it to us.
Okay,
if you don't mind.
Yep.
Thanks, Brian.
Gail?
I just want to say I wanted to apologize for my very clumsy sending so many emails to everybody about my research purely into the music, both in Alberta and here. And most of the institutions were really great in answering, and I was delighted to finally find that the museum does have a copy of the Boer War music that he was involved with, which I had held in my hands at one point, and I don't know where it's gone into the ether, but I can remember, and my husband can remember it too. So his musicality was what I was looking at. And as soon as you said, James, that Nicholson, I went, yep, that looks like a Nicholson house to me too. That's as soon as you mentioned that, I was really surprised. I hope it turns out to be so.
Yeah, through the chair, you mentioned a good point about kind of his early days in St. Catharines, because he had a song called the Garden City Waltz, I think.
Yeah, that's in special collections, and it's at the U of T Music Library.
He probably merited, to be honest, that probably can be added to this as well. Yeah. Like when I actually give this to write the report to council, I'll make sure to include all that information. Yeah. I think what I wanted to do really was kind of the idea that he was so closely tapped into such a big part of kind of North America.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. No.
Yeah. So, but I will definitely make sure that all that additional.
And his family was all here. I mean, that was in the records, the birth, marriage, and death records that I shared with you all. But yeah, no, the house looks wonderful.
John?
That house was recently up for sale. I just wondered if did it sell recently? I'm not sure. And does the current owner, I was concerned it might have been sold to a developer, but
yeah,
because it is a huge property.
Yeah, so through the chair, the way that this property came to us was some of the local neighbors got in touch with Councillor Kushner because they had same concerns. They had heard that it was sold and bought by a developer. So they, Gail was involved as well, early days in terms of the conversations with the councillor, and Gail, she would bring it as an item. And so we discussed it at the last meeting, essentially. So as part of our process, we reach out to the owner and we say, you know, the committee has interest in the property. Do you have any questions, or, you know, do you have any concerns? So I've sent a letter out to them. We sent that out early last week, pretty much as soon as the designation subcommittee said, yep, we think that this is a property that merits listing. So there's still a chance that they'll get in touch with us and say, you know, we have concerns, because perhaps they are a developer and they were hoping to develop the site because, like you said, it is a big lot. But we'll cross that road when we get to it. But yeah, that was kind of the impetus, I think, for this kind of project. Was the local community was concerned that the house was sold and they weren't sure what was going to happen to it after that.
Okay, thank you.
Lorraine, you have a question?
I want to offer a philosophical comment. So we had a huge celebration for Neil Peart, who absolutely deserved it for the music that he created, or Rush created, about St. Catharines and the song that they created. And yet probably very few people know about Walkinshaw and the music that he created, named, you know, the Garden City Waltz. It just seems it's just an interesting perspective to think about.
Gail, you've got another?
Not really. I just wanted to add to, because of John Crawley had missed the last meeting, that Joe Kushner had approached me, because I'm an old friend, to bring it to the committee on behalf of about 5 or 6 neighbors who were very concerned that it had being sold to a developer, because this developer was sniffing around. We don't know who bought it, and that's all I have to say. Just to explain to John what happened last meeting.
Oh, John, you're muted.
You're muted.
John, you're muted.
Oh, I'll get my wife to look into it because she's a realtor. She can get that information. So
good.
All right.
Through the chair,
I'll report to you.
Lorraine made a really good point, I thought, about kind of, there's untapped kind of musical history, I think, in St. Catharines. We do have a pretty strong kind of musical history. I mean, we have Grammy winners in the city, right? So, or at least one for sure. And so it's pretty interesting, I think, that there is this kind of story to tell. And, you know, maybe that's an opportunity next year or the year after, like to focus some of we were talking about commemoration, right? And maybe, you know, maybe put together some plaques that kind of tell that story, because I think there's definitely something there.
I would agree, James.
We even have country western artists living here in Port Weller. Anyway, so I guess we should have a motion to recommend adding 25 Henrietta to the city's heritage register.
Yeah, let me just put it up on the screen so we can,
and I guess this will be pending further research to, you know, update the committee in September.
So I don't know if a lot of new research needs to be done. Essentially, I think I have enough here that will go into that can go into a report to council. I think that will probably go to a council meeting maybe at the end of September. So I don't think there's any more research we need to really do. If anybody wants to do some more digging, because it is an interesting house, you're by all means welcome to do so. But I'm gonna have to write the report pretty quickly and get that kind of over to our clerk's department pretty fast. So no more research is really needed, but it'll go to council and they'll make the final call essentially on whether or not it should be added to the register. And we'll see what happens in terms of whether the owner actually gets in touch with us as well. So. So the motion that I have up on the screen is that the HAC recommends adding the property at 25 Henrietta to the city's heritage register.
Does anybody wish to make that motion?
Yeah, I would, simply because Joe Kushner asked me to bring it forward. So I know I've been saying I'm putting my hand up for a lot of things, but because of that, I'd like Joe to know that, yes.
Okay, okay, good enough.
Yeah. Okay.
So if there's no further discussion, all in favor? Looks like it's done.
Great.
The only other thing that I guess we wanted to talk about was the synagogue.
Yeah.
Just really quickly, I don't know if James, if you want to start out with that. I got an email from Howard Slepkov the other day because I had sent him a message sometime earlier saying, what's the state of the congregation's thoughts on designating the synagogue? And he basically said, it looks like we're all in favor of it, but we have to have a majority vote. And I guess he had a meeting in July, which James attended. There was no quorum at that meeting, so I guess another meeting has been called for September. And hopefully they'll all get together and vote. And if so, we may be having a request to designate the synagogue coming up in October.
Yeah, so through the chair, maybe I'll just expand on that a little bit. So I believe they came to you first, Brian, right? If I'm not mistaken, about the 100th anniversary of the synagogue is, I believe, in 2025. And so as part of that, they're hoping to get some funds, and there's a few different programs that they're trying to tap into. And they felt that both commemorating it in the form of a designation would be really helpful, and also just a way to ensure that their building in the long term remains. And so essentially, Brian and I met on site. I mean, it's a stunning building. If anybody hasn't been inside, it's really, really nice building. And so I've had a couple meetings with them. I attended essentially the equivalent of a public meeting with them a couple months ago. Unfortunately, they were hoping to get quorum and they didn't quite get it. They have a big congregation, and so that was unfortunate because generally the meeting went pretty well. There were, of course, people in the congregation that were concerned about what designation would mean for their building. But generally, it was a good conversation. Apparently, some people who weren't able to attend have a lot of opinions about whether or not they should be designated. So that's why he has to make sure he's holding another meeting. I think that's in a few weeks, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, their target is to have a designation in place by 2025. So it's not something we don't have to have a designation ready in October, November, anything like that. But it is their plan, or their hope, I guess, is to have a designation in place in time for the 100th anniversary. So, and it's nice to have somebody come to us for a change. So I think it's a project that we'll definitely be supportive of when they get here.
Gail?
Well, here I go again. I'm sorry, but Howard gave a talk to the Historical Society of St. Catharines a year and a half ago. He's written a book, and I'm asking James if you've seen his book on the history.
I have sseen it. I haven't read it myself.
Okay,
he has a copy.
I could lend you my personal copy if you wanted to see it. But it's interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, to say the least. The history. It's really interesting. So you've got a copy with you, James.
I don't have a copy with me, but I will get one from Howard. He has a copy, and it's intended for me, but I just don't have it on me. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I'd be glad to drop mine by for you, instead of waiting for Howard.
I'm going to see Howard in a couple weeks. So
okay, fine. Okay, good.
Go from there.
Good. Thanks.
Any further questions about that? Otherwise, do we need a motion to receive?
A couple questions, it looks like.
Okay. Lorraine?
What's Howard's, Howard is a work colleague, and I have his book as well. What's his role at the synagogue? Does he have an official title now?
Brian, do you know what his title is?
Good question. I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, he's not a rabbi.
No, he's not. No, but I'm just wondering, is he in a position of leadership?
Yes,
or is it just more of an informal leadership piece? Or because you're saying, he contacted you about that, and then he held the meeting. So I'm just wondering, is he someone who would be sort of our representative we would contact, we would deal with? Is he?
Yeah,
I think so.
He's who I have been dealing with for the most part, and in contact with. It seems like he's in a position where he's able to kind of be a driver on this. And so, but he does have to kind of get there are other members of the community, I think, who are also very senior or high up in terms of their structure. So I just don't know how he relates to all of them. So. but it seems like he's kind of driving this project.
I thought maybe like the planning committee for the 2025 anniversary, or it would be interesting to know kind of what his role was, who we were dealing with. Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
through the chair, it's interesting because I never thought to really ask that question. But it does seem like he's been kind of taking charge on this project, and whether, you know, I don't think he's going rogue or anything like that. I think it seems like there's been no sense of that whatsoever. So I think he's somebody in a senior position there who's able to kind of take the initiative on a project like this. So
I won't tell you any of our work stories then, James. No. I'm just kidding.
I think
Maria, you
had a question.
Yes,
Maria
thanks.
had a question.
Thank you. What synagogue are we talking about? I'm totally in the dark about.
Yeah,
Which
here
one?
I'll pull it up on the screen because maybe
The last
one
thing
of the
that
things
I
that
can see is 1983.
let me just share my screen in 1 second.
Yeah, thank you.
It's on Church Street near the Salvation Army, near
Yeah,
the men's
yeah.
hostel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Stacy Tie or something.
it's
Or-
actually the only synagogue in the city.
I was going to say, I think we only have one.
There's only one.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
And
so-
obviously the building is of historical interest, which is
Oh,
why
yeah.
Mhm.
considering it.
It's virtually unchanged.
Yeah,
Oh, I see. Yes, I recognize it now.
yeah.
So this space in particular is gorgeous inside as well.
Oh, yeah.
There's really lovely stained glass windows and whatnot. When we were speaking to him, kind of the first time we met, he was asking us, you know, what we thought about what might be included in designation, and we thought, you know, like this entryway probably has some significance. Obviously, kind of these insets here probably would have some significance.
Mhm.
You know, this kind of, I'm not sure what era that dates to, from mid 60s or 70s edition.
Right.
Probably not as significant, but definitely this space here, the original portion, would be significant, and the interiors as well. And the interiors actually it's a challenging thing to designate interiors because it does limit what you can do with a building afterwards.
Yes.
So there was a lot of concern about, because there are very specific kind of emblems, or, you know, I don't have the vocabulary, unfortunately, to be able to describe the Jewish features that are inside that space.
Yes.
But there are features that are significant to their religion, right? And so what do you do with those, right? If all of a sudden, if the congregation is no longer there, maybe they combine with another congregation somewhere and they move out and they sell the property. You know, what happens to all those items, right? So a lot of discussion about that and figuring out what that might look like in the form of a designation, but we'll cross it right when we get to it, essentially.
Yes. Thank you. What's the name of the synagogue? What's it known as?
It's the Benai,
Israel something or other?
Benai
Yeah.
Israel.
Yeah. Okay, I know of it then, yeah. All right, thank you.
it's the Congregation Benai Israel and Jewish Community Center.
Thank you.
It's a long name, so that's why I didn't know it off the top of my head.
Thank you.
I don't know. I might be able to see if there's some interior photos just to, but we are getting long, so maybe we'll save those for when they actually come in for.
I mean, the main feature, the gorgeous thing inside the building is the, I guess it's the ark where they keep the Torah.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
Yeah,
Absolutely
it's probably about 15 or 20 feet tall, carved wood structure, and it's fantastic. It's a piece of art, essentially.
Great. Marvelous.
So I guess we need a motion to just receive that update.
Yeah, and yeah, that's it. Just a motion to receive that.
So does somebody wish to make the motion? Lorraine, thank you. And all in favor? Okay. So the date of our next meeting is going to be September the 28th at 2:30. Same bat time, same bat station. So unless there's anything else, I guess we need a motion to terminate.
No, just a quick update on 25 Henrietta. It closed today, and we won't know for 2 or 3 days who the new owner is. So,
okay, that's okay. I didn't realize that it was that imminent. Okay.
What, would you repeat what you said, John?
The property, the sale closed today,
Closed today.
and we can't find out the owner's name until could be a week.
Wow.
The time is of the essence.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Okay, thanks, John.
Okay,
So a motion to terminate.
I'll make that motion.
John, thank you. All in favor? So it's 4:46 according to my clock. So thank you, everyone, and have a great long weekend.
Oh, it is a long weekend, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep,
Okay,
and we'll
great.
see you
Thanks
all
all.
Good long
in
weekend.
September.
Thanks
Bye.
all. Thanks to all. Yeah.
James, did Holly say she wasn't coming today?
No,
No, I don't think
She
so.
wasn't here.
I have to go through my emails to see. I can't
Oh,
remember.
okay, okay.
so
So-
she's just absent, right?
Yeah, 'cause she usually
Okay.
is here, so I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I thought about 1 to 2 myself.